All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Larry Rosen. I am a Community Engagement Associate from the Ajax Public Library. I would like to welcome everybody here today for this Seasonal Affective Disorder event hosted by Kayla Goss from Korea Community Health Center. This presentation is being recorded, so please feel free to turn off your camera, microphone if you wish. And I'm just going to bring up a welcome slide to look at here. And then we'll continue. Okay. And I'm going to do a land acknowledgement here. We'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty 1788 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home of the Indigenous peoples. Let's acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support, truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Okay, if you're having trouble connecting, please try to reconnect. Sometimes that will fix any issues that we have. The agenda for today is we're going to be learning about seasonal affective disorder, what it is, its implications on your mind and body, and it was discuss tips and strategies to manage SAD and boost resiliency during these months. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla to start the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I'm going to start sharing my screen. If I can figure it out.
Should be a screen share at the bottom.
Yes. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so as Larry had, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. Thank you for joining me this morning. And today we are going to be learning a little bit more about seasonal affective disorder. If anyone is feeling brave enough, I would love to hear kind of what brought you here, how you found out about this, but also kind of what you're hoping to get out of it. So if anyone's feeling brave enough to kind of share, I would be more than happy to welcome those answers. And you can also, I'm all for the chat function as well. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put those in the chat, or you can wait till the end and ask me. There will be a time to ask questions there as well. Okay, so first on the agenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, who I am. We're going to be comparing some things with seasonal affective disorder. I'm going to go into a lot of the symptoms and of SAD. Frequently, I'll be referring to seasonal affective disorder as SAD just because it's a lot shorter. Who and why it affects, how it relates to grief, and different treatments that are available for seasonal affective disorder. Okay, so who we are, I work for Korea Community Health Center. And so you may have seen us around. We are very involved with the community. We are a team of doctors, we offer counseling, there's nutritionists, we have a bunch of different programs, health promotion, and community engagement. So if you've seen us around, you know a little bit of what we do, but there's also our website there if you want more information. And so a little bit about me. I have my honors bachelor's degree in psychology from McMaster. I then I didn't really know what I wanted to specify in, so I went and got a graduate certificate in youth corrections and interventions. Then I got a master's degree in counseling psychology from Yorkville. I worked for the school board for about 10 years with primarily special needs students, kids with mental health issues, And now I'm a registered psychotherapist and I work for a private practice as well. Okay, so I would love it if you guys could all go to this website. And I want you, it's going to be a word cloud, and I'm going to share it on the screen here. And I'm going to present this. Okay. And I want you to come up with as many words as you can related to what you think of when you hear seasonal affective disorder. And your responses will appear on the screen. If you have, people might have the same one, that word will appear more than once. They'll be bigger if there's a lot of words, say for example, sad, that word would appear more than once. It would be bigger. So please go to that website and we'll kind of see where you guys are at in terms of what you know about seasonal affective disorder at this time.
Kayla, are you able to put the link in the chat?
Yes, I will.
Thanks.
Okay, so I see low energy. What other words do people think of when you hear seasonal affective disorder? Depressed. Okay. Sadness. Tired. Grayness. Yeah. Laziness. Yeah, these are great words to describe it. Eating. Yeah. Okay, see that word has gotten bigger, so I'm sure someone else has written that. Okay, I'll give you about a minute more and we can move on. Not able to eat. Okay, yeah, it can go both ways. We'll get into that. Not able to eat and also eating more. Yeah. Okay, I don't see any more answers coming in, so I'll exit out of this and we'll go back to the presentation. Okay, so we're gonna watch a quick video and let me know if you have trouble hearing it. I'm not hugely technology savvy, so let me know if you guys hear this or not.
Kayla, when you're sharing this video, is there something there that says share sound as well? It might be part of the Zoom sharing
Okay.
It might be something that says share sound as well.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I see it. Okay, there we go.
That's better.
May I help you?
I'm in sad shape.
Wait a minute. Before you begin, I must ask that you pay in a year. Or maybe you have seasonal affective disorder. Do you think you have seasonal affective disorder?
What's seasonal affective disorder?
Winter depression. That's it!
Okay, so a cute little video to get us started. Okay, so you may have heard the difference between winter blues and SAD. So SAD is an actual diagnosis. Winter blues is a more subdued version of SAD. So winter blues affects 15% of people. It's not a medical diagnosis, and it's usually gone in a short amount of time. This comes with a wave of low emotions that come with cold and dark days. You might want to sleep a bit longer, eat more comfort foods, spend more time watching Netflix than with friends and family. And it's usually tied to something specific. So missing a loved one, finances, family stress. A lot of these things come around the holidays too. Winter time, Christmas. Whereas SAD affects a lot less people. So it's 2 to 3% of people. It's actually a mental health condition. And it's a subtype of major depressive disorder, so MDD. And it's triggered by changes of the season. So these are the two big differences between winter blues and SAD. So depression and bipolar, a lot of times seasonal affective disorder co-occurs with these two disorders. So for depression, you would have a depressed mood. You have a lower ability to experience pleasure, especially in things that you used to seek pleasure in. You experience guilt or hopelessness. You have decreased energy. As someone mentioned before with the word cloud, it affects your mood. And it's 10 to 20% of all depression cases. So bipolar does fit under the depressive category. Bipolar, on the other hand, you experience mania. And so mania is the opposite end of depression. So you might be really like spending a lot of money, or reckless, elevated mood, like really, really high mood. Hypomania is a more subdued version of mania. But you also experience depression. So it's that fluctuation. You experience irritability, anxiety, rapid exchanges in mood, sleep disturbances, and hyperactivity, depending on which area you're in. That would usually be mania. And so SAD, more specifically, SAD occurs during a specific time of the year, and it has a full remission at other times of the year. So this is the big difference between SAD and depression, right? Depression would be, it is regardless of what season you're in, whereas SAD is very specific. The average duration of a SAD episode is about 3.9 months, 33% of the year. It typically occurs during the fall or winter, but there is a less common form that does occur during spring or summer. I know people, I'm not one of them, I know people that love the winter, so they would be more likely, if they were to experience this, to experience that in the spring or summer. The spring and summer symptoms are a lot less common. So some of them overlap with the winter SAD, but they can experience increased irritability, poor appetite with weight loss, which someone had mentioned in the word cloud, insomnia, so an inability to sleep, being very agitated, restless, experiencing anxiety, and also increased violence. And so SAD, when it comes to the winter, the more common form during the winter and sometimes fall, you have an increased need for sleep, or you may have trouble getting a good night's sleep. It can kind of go either way. And the same thing is when you look at depression, some people can, oversleep, and some people can't sleep at all. It really depends on the person. So you typically crave those carbs. You have cravings with increased appetite and weight gain. You might experience extreme fatigue, where you just, no matter how much sleep you get, you're really, really tired. And then this can also be congruent with feeling sad, guilty, and down on yourself, especially when you're not doing a lot of things. That can affect the way we view ourselves, right? Where we feel guilty for not doing things. We feel sad, but at the same time, we don't really feel like doing anything. So it's this catch-22, and that's where we kind of go in that cycle. Feeling hopeless, so kind of not seeing an out to it, irritable, avoiding people or activities you used to enjoy. So, you know, feeling sad, you might typically, if this was during the summer, you might like get together with friends. Well, during sad, you don't really even feel that energy to do that, but it's kind of making it worse because you're not seeing those people. Feeling tense and stressed, and loss of interest in other physical contact with people. So there's some physical symptoms that are associated with SAD, back aches, muscle aches, headaches, flu-like symptoms and fibromyalgia, and a worsening of premenstrual syndrome. So it's, as a lot of people now know, especially with research and mental health being more of a concern in the general population, our physical health is very much tied to our mental health, right? So a lot of times when you experience these physical symptoms, sometimes when there's not a physical cause for it, a lot of times it is rooted in our mental well-being. So I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but there is a great tie between the two. So the SAD diagnosis, like I said before, it affects 2 to 3% of Canadians. 15% will experience that milder form of SAD, so those winter blues, which they're commonly termed. And what we call subsyndromal SAD is milder symptoms that don't majorly disrupt social and occupational functioning. So there's some people that may really be struggling, but they're still going to work, they're still seeing friends, but on the inside, they're still feeling that blah, like not feeling great. And to be diagnosed, the stressors of a specific season, such as layoffs during the winter, must not contribute to mood episodes. So that would be what we would call specific depression, situational depression, where there's a situation that has specifically led to the depression. So it's to be diagnosed, you can't have gone through something like that leads to the depressed mood. So the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that is the manual that houses all of the disorders, commonly called the DSM. So that's where you find, depression, personality disorders, bipolar, anxiety disorders, every disorder, mental health disorder that is a disorder would be found in this. So when you go through the DSM, they will list criteria for what you need to be diagnosed with each specific disorder. So for SAD, there needs to be a regular timed relationship between the start of major depressive episodes in major depressive disorder and a particular time of the year. So like I said earlier, it can't just happen randomly during the year. It's tied to a specific time of the year. And then there's a remission when that new season starts, typically the spring. Full remission. So a change from major depression to mania or hypomania also happen during a distinctive time of the year. So typically spring or summer, you kind of come out of that depressive mood and you experience either normalcy or that elevated mood that some people experience when, I love when the tulips come out, because I know that means that spring is coming, right? The sun is there more often. And in the past 2 years, those 2 major depressive episodes have occurred in the relationships described above. So it has to happen consecutively for 2 years. So a lot of times when you're looking, say, at depression in the DSM, it will say this depression has to last for 2 weeks, right? Well, it's a little bit hard with SAD because it's occurring during a specific time of the year. So rather than 2 weeks, it's actually 2 years to be formally diagnosed. And then seasonal major depressive episodes heavily outweigh the number of non-seasonal major depressive episodes that have occurred over the individual's lifetime, right? So if it's happened to you, say once, 2 times, there wouldn't be a diagnosis for that. However, if it happens a lot more often, then you'd be more likely to receive that formal diagnosis. So who does it affect and why does this happen? Is there a biological underpinning? Is there a science behind it? That's what we're going to explore a little bit more. So it affects a lot more adults than kids. It actually decreases after the age of 50. So you're less likely to experience it after that age. It's more likely to affect women as well. Then why? Why does this happen? So there is something called the circadian rhythm, and I will be showing you a video about that in a few minutes. And so you can see that they have melatonin. So melatonin is something that usually helps sleep. Well, the seasonal deprivation of light actually changes this internal clock that we have. So that circadian rhythm, and that determines our circadian rhythm. And so that circadian rhythm in very basic terms is a repeated physical, mental, and behavioral change. And it goes through a 24-hour cycle. And so it responds to light and darkness in the environment. So interesting, because obviously in the winter, we're experiencing a lot more darkness. So how is our brain supposed to respond to that when it's so accustomed to, okay, it's going to be dark by 6, and then, and then it just gets confused. And so the reduced amount of natural sunlight changes the body's circadian rhythm. And we're going to watch a video because they're probably a lot more eloquent in talking about the science behind it. I'm not a scientist. I'm more into the therapy and psychology. So this will be a quick video to kind of help you understand circadian rhythm a little bit more.
How do you know when it's time to sleep or time to wake up in the morning? More powerful than any alarm clock are your own circadian rhythms, 24-hour cycles of biological processes that exist in every living thing. They keep your body functioning on schedule, day and night, wherever you are.
Okay, hopefully that provided a little bit more of a scientific background as to, and I found it interesting. A lot of the youth I work with, a lot of them say that their school starts at like 7:30. And science has actually shown that delaying that, right? Having the later start day is actually better for them and produces better results and better attention in class. And it seems like schools are kind of doing the opposite right now and then ending at 2. So I found that interesting. So as we kind of just saw, the decrease in exposure to sunlight extends that production of sleep-inducing hormones. So that hormone of darkness, or melatonin. Right? So a lot of people, when they have trouble sleeping, they take melatonin to help them sleep. Whereas those who are experiencing SAD, you're more likely to produce more melatonin, which is the opposite of what you want, because it's making you want to sleep more, stay in bed. Whereas in the summer, sometimes people need that, right? And are out buying melatonin. Whereas you're kind of experiencing that overabundance of melatonin if you're one who's experiencing SAD quite often. So like I just said, those with SAD have higher levels of melatonin, and they stay high until the spring, where there's more sunlight and the days become longer. So I found this map interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So SAD has been studied kind of across the world, who it affects, and that all those yellow parts, those would be people who are not experiencing SAD as much, right? So those in more northern places are more likely to experience SAD than those who live close to the equator. So no wonder we're doing this in Canada, because Canada is more north and we experience more cold. Whereas if you lived in Mexico, that's where everyone's flying to from Canada. Florida, people are flying there from Canada because they want to avoid that, right? So it makes sense that SAD is less common in those areas compared to these northern places. And the onset of SAD is usually in October or November for those north of the equator, so that would be us, and June or July for those who live south of it, so the opposite. And symptoms in Canada or those north do not typically resolve until the springtime. So there's sometimes some other causes and reasons why some of them haven't been as heavily studied. So some countries such as Iceland, where they eat a lot of fish, have actually been shown to have lower rates of SAD. And so the consensus is that maybe that's associated with the omega-3 fat in their diet. But again, there's a whole host of reasons, right? But this is something that people have found. There is a strong genetic component, certain genes that are, slower at absorbing light, for example. Those genes are typically passed on. So if people in your family typically suffer from SAD, you're more likely to suffer from it as well. So it'd be interesting to kind of ask family members if you feel like you're experiencing a lot of these symptoms, seeing if that runs in your family. That could give you a little bit more of a insight as to whether that could be something you're experiencing. So the level of serotonin in the brain, so typically stimulated by sunlight, and has been linked to mood disorders, especially depression. So when you're depressed, and people go on antidepressants, which are usually serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So boosting the serotonin levels. And so a lot of times we know depression is also genetic. And so a lot of the reasons why is because of that serotonin and whether that gene is passed on or not. So grief and SAD, you might be wondering why is grief related to seasonal affective disorder? And to start, I would say it's one of the main reasons is because a lot of times SAD is around Christmas, right? That's usually when it starts. Winter's getting really bad. A lot of people actually find it getting worse after Christmas because it's something to look forward to, right? There's a lot of people who suffer during those Christmas months because they've lost people in their lives, right? And a lot of times that brings back memories of those people, missing those people, right? Even if it's been years, it's still not always a happy time for a lot of people. And so many of those grief reactions are very similar to those symptoms that we looked at of SAD. So some of those commonalities include, change in appetite, sleep disturbances, whether that's sleeping too much or sleeping too little, fatigue or exhaustion, sadness or depressed mood, anxiety or irritability, hopelessness, increased thoughts about death or suicide. And there's a lot of times a resurgence of those grief reactions each year near the anniversary of their loved one's death, right? And that especially makes it worse if it's during those winter months. And so if your loss occurred in fall or winter, it can sometimes be very difficult to determine, am I experiencing grief, or am I experiencing SAD, or am I actually experiencing both, which is also possible, right? A lot of these disorders co-occur. And so what can you do to ease the grief? Because regardless, sometimes it's kind of pointless. Why am I distinguishing which one is both? Because if I'm feeling sad about a loved one, then it has to be grief. So we want to treat the symptom, not the diagnosis, right? That's the big difference. So recognizing that each person experiences grief differently and trying not to compare your own grief experiences to others, right? Some people might really be looking like they're handling the grief well, that time of year doesn't really bother them, whereas you might be really down on yourself, feeling like, why am I feeling like this? But my sibling is totally like off living their life, right? It's just different people. Seeking support through friends, family, church, a counselor, and or a grief support group. Exposing yourself to sunlight as much as possible. Getting outside when you can. And the last one, being gentle with yourself through the grief process. So all this talk about SAD, and you guys might be asking, thinking okay, this is great. Okay, I know what it is. I have an understanding, but what can I actually do to treat it? Is there a treatment? Short answer is yes. There is a bunch of different things. So treatments, light therapy, SSRIs, vitamins, therapy, and lifestyle changes. So we'll kind of go into what these are. So light therapy. So I used to have one of these lights. I got it from Costco. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from a bunch of different places. So light therapy is a high illuminating fluorescent bulb. So typically around 2,500 to 10,000 LUX. So that's how they measure light. And so this is very much a lot stronger than even the sunlight. So you don't have to be with it for a long period of time. So this is actually shown to cause chemical changes in the brain because it's mimicking sunlight, right? And it's actually more intense than sunlight. So you don't have to, sit by it for a few hours. And so typically it's 30 to 60 minutes per day. And it's usually used shortly after waking up, so it can kind of boost you for that day, right? If you do it at night, you might find you have a little bit more trouble sleeping at night because it's kind of boosting that that mindset to get kind of active. It can be done while doing other activities. So I remember either doing my nails, doing my makeup, you know, it can be used while you're watching TV. So it's versatile that way. It's very low risk. It's not really associated with many health concerns. And they've actually found that 60 to 80% of those struggling with SAD have found relief from their SAD symptoms by using light therapy. And we're going to watch another video that kind of talks quickly about light therapy.
Want to flip the switch on feeling down during the winter months? Dr. Craig Sawchuk suggests giving light therapy a try.
Light therapy is one of our effective treatments that is actually really easily tolerated. Rarely do people have side effects of it, and it's a pretty portable type of intervention that we can do.
Light therapy is thought to affect brain chemicals linked to mood and sleep, easing symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Dr. Sawchuk recommends using a 10,000 lux light within the first hour of waking up for about 20 minutes.
That tends to be about the sweet spot of exposure to that light. You want to make sure that the light is sitting probably about an arm's length or so in front of you. You don't have to stare directly at the light, but you want to keep your eyes open, so you could be doing things like having breakfast or a cup of coffee, watching TV, you know, working online or scrolling through things.
Continue light therapy into the spring or whenever your mood starts to naturally improve. For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Dee Dee Stephen. Want to flip?
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. SSRIs, these are typically used to treat depression, but they've also been found to be effective for those struggling with SAD, especially because it is a subtype of depression. So it's typically this first-line therapy for unipolar depression, and it's been shown to improve depression for the subtypes such as SAD as well. So fluoxetine, better known as fluoxetine, is just a generic version. Prozac, it showed similar improvements to light therapy in both the effectiveness and safety. So some people don't want to go the medical route. They don't want to be taking drugs. So, but if that is an option, it does have similar improvements to light therapy. And some people find it's hard to make time for the light. So they just find that it's easier just to take an SSRI. And bupropion, so also called Wellbutrin, it's the only medication that has been specifically labeled for preventing SAD. So that's important to keep in mind as well. So vitamins. So a lot of people take vitamins. Vitamin D is a very important one during the winter. And vitamin D deficiency has been associated with depressive disorder and actually progresses that illness. So I find that, like, I've talked to a lot of people, and they've actually found the drops, the vitamin D drops, work better than the pills. I think it's just how it's digested within your body. It's a lot quicker, and yeah, but it's personal preference. B vitamins, omega-3. So we had talked about that earlier with Iceland and the fish that they eat. Zinc and antioxidants are very important for brain function, which it can also improve SAD symptoms. And so the deficiency of these nutrients that may result in a difference in memory function, cognitive impairment, and development of a major depressive disorder. So that's also important to keep in mind, is if you don't want to go the medication route, you can try your hand at vitamins and seeing what kind of works for you. So therapy. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is effective for depression. So that's a type of therapy that really challenges your thoughts, how your thoughts, behaviors, and actions all intertwine and affect each other. Teaches you skills to help change your view of the world around you. Helps break the negative patterns of depression. For example, the thoughts and actions. And it's funny because as therapists, we a lot of times notice a decrease in the number of patients we see during the summer months, right? Because people are sometimes going away on vacation, especially if they have kids, school-age kids. But also people are just typically happier, right? And then you have an influx more of people in the winter who are really struggling. And therapy it can be used alongside other treatments. So that I always tell people when I see them, the number one, therapy works great, medication works great. Studies have actually shown that the best form of therapy is combined with medication, but it also depends on the person, right? Medication is not a fit for everyone. And lifestyle changes. So this is the thing that you would all have the most control over. So spending more time outdoors, especially when it's sunny. I've been noticing when the sun comes out, I'm like itching to get outside just to soak it in, even if it's for 10 minutes, because I feel like it's been so dark, especially this winter. Maximizing sunlight. So whether this means opening up your blinds when there's sun, sitting by the window, taking your dog for a walk. I have a dog and I wouldn't be going out for walks if I didn't have her. So really soaking in as much sunlight as you can, even if you don't feel like going outside, kind of opening up those windows, putting a skylight in your house if you're building a house, stuff like that. Install lamps and skylights. Exercising can definitely boost mood. Eating healthy, getting good sleep habits, and connecting with others. I know I mentioned earlier, sometimes we're feeling really sad and down that we don't feel like connecting with others, but it's actually the complete opposite of what we should be doing, even when we don't feel like it. It's important to kind of make that effort because that is definitely shown to increase people's mood. Okay, so just like at the beginning, I had that poll going on. I would love for you to log back on to that poll. I'll post it again. And I want to see how much has changed for you guys. If you have more things that you're going to add, and I will share this screen again. And if there's anything else you guys want to add after hearing more about what seasonal affective disorder is, who it affects, treatment, I would love to see some more things added in terms of what you guys have learned over this talk. So I guess think of, who did I talk about that it affected? What are some of the treatments? What are some of the symptoms that you may not have thought about earlier? Okay, vitamins, yeah. Therapy, yeah. Light. Eating healthy, yeah. Friends, huge one. Family. Connecting with others. Thank you, David. Yeah. Connecting with others, I find is one of the biggest, to be honest. definitely notice a difference in people when they have that social support network versus those who don't have those people, those connections. Okay, I'll give everyone a minute more to write therapy. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exercise. Yeah, exercise is a big one. I know, and I know it's hard to exercise, especially when, you know, it's snowy outside, you want to get outside and you don't have a gym at home, gyms are expensive. So it's hard to fit in that exercise piece. And I recognize that for sure. And that's, you know, you also see why that can impact people, right? People who like to go for hikes, they might not like that in the winter, right? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to the presentation. So there is something, if you feel like you are experiencing seasonal affective disorder and really do want to figure that out, there's something called the seasonal pattern assessment assessment questionnaire. And so all you have to do is either use that that link that's there. I'll see, I don't know if that's the actual, I'll put it here in the chat. Not sure if that will work or not, but all you have to do is type that into Google and it will pop up. So the seasonal pattern assessment questionnaire is a 2-pager. So it you put down your information. I mean, this is just for your own personal use. Obviously, you don't have to do that. But it has at the bottom, to what degree do you do the following change with the seasons? And so it's kind of a self-assessment right there. Next page, you actually go month by month and determine when you feel the best, when you gain the most weight, when you eat the most, and talk about your weight fluctuating, how many hours do you sleep, do you notice a change in food preference, all of this. And that will give you a better sense as to if you can find a pattern between those winter months versus those summer months. So that's a quick assessment that you can all do by yourselves to kind of keep a pattern, keep a tally of how you're feeling. And a lot of times a year is a long time, right? So if you're keeping that up to date, you can easily look back on that year and kind of compare where your mood was at. Okay, now is the time for questions. If anyone had questions, thank you all for attending. I really appreciate it. I hope you've taken something away with you, either understanding it a little bit more or even thinking about what you can do to improve. Either you might be facing it or someone you know might be facing it, and have a few things up your sleeve as to what strategies you can use to kind of combat this. Does anyone have any questions? You can either unmute yourself or you can write in the chat.
If there are further questions outside of this meeting, is there an email address or a website that?
Yeah, so I will put my email address in the chat here. And if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that, if you want to reach out to someone, if you want to seek therapy, we also do offer that. And so, yeah, that would be the best way to reach me.
Thank you. ajaxlibrary.ca also has books on the subject. Just do a search.
Awesome. Okay, I don't see any questions. So thank you for joining me today, and hopefully you have a good rest of the day. And yeah.
Thank you very much for attending. Stay safe out there. Stay warm.
Yes.